So on the show today, John Williams. So John is the author of what was called Screw Work, Let's Play, and now it's been upgraded to Fuck Work, Let's Play. And he's, someone that I respect a lot in the area of life purpose. And, he was a senior consultant at Deloitte, I believe. Then at a certain point just went, enough already. He does some really good online work. He's someone that's been around for a while in this field of personal growth and knows what he's talking about. So John, nice to see you again, mate.
Yeah, nice to see you. And thanks very much for inviting me on. But really, I was passionate about psychology and, broadly you call it psychological healing. I had a fairly unhappy time as a child due to my father died in a car accident and some other shit happened. And so I'd always been devouring psychology books since I was 13 years old. And now I've basically been in therapy for about 25 years. I did some of the core training that psychotherapists do. I did a counseling training year, and I've done all sorts of bodywork treatments, as a client. I've experienced all sorts of things. And then when I started, really indulging my creativity, I started running events. I ran a live event for what's called scanners. A scanner is somebody with lots of ideas, lots of interests, hates to choose between them. And I ran a live event for 5 years that became very popular and got in the press. That attracted me a book deal for Screw Work, Let's Play, which is about how to do what you love and get paid for it. And I've, for 15 years, we've basically been helping creatively minded people do what they love and get paid for it. So I spend a lot of time teaching people marketing. That's what it comes down to.
Well, we share this, don't we? I mean, you're one of the people that when I did Purpose Black Belt, I think 5 years ago, you're one of the people I reached out to, and I read your book in its first iteration. And, it became apparent to me that and there's sort of two problems, isn't there, in our communities? Like there's people who don't know what they want to do with their life and they feel sort of dissatisfied working in the 9 to 5. And then there's people who have discovered what they want to do with their life, but they can't sell it for shit.
Yes.
And it seems like we both got interested in those two topics. You were ahead of the game with me on this, and your book's now the sort of W.H. Smith's recommended book or something at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think people are so interested in this area of, it's kind of like stating the obvious to me, but I think it's worth laying out the reasons, because there's a number of reasons. Why do people want to do what they love and get paid for it?
I think it's a search for meaning. So in actual fact, I was on a friend's podcast and described me as, a philosopher or something, because although my books are about business and they're quite practical about how to market yourself, actually the great challenge of doing what you love and get paid for it is find that sweet spot between what you love doing and what the world needs. Yeah. And in actual fact, the pivotal quote in this book is by Aristotle. And he said something like, and can't remember it without looking it up, something like, where your great joy and the world's needs meet, there lies your vocation. And I thought, well, there you go, 2,300 years old, that piece of advice. And it's still shit hot, really. And that finding that sweet spot between the two is kind of a lifelong journey, right? You're always modifying your business. I'm always modifying my business.
Constantly, yeah.
Like, how do you make this even more enjoyable? How do you have a bigger impact? Sometimes, how do you make more money? Because I like money, and I don't mind admitting that. How do you get all those things together? It's like that graph, which you might see. There's a meme where people go, "This is what people think success. This is how they think success works. Here's A, here's B, straight line. Here's how success really works. Here's A, B, here's A and B. And then there's just this massive squiggly mess in between."
Yeah,
and that's the reality. Apparently that was the stand-up comic, Dimitri Martin, that came up with that. And it's so true. And we're not taught that in school, because we're taught to go in a very linear way and like pass the exam or fail the exam. And if you fail, that's it. Whereas in entrepreneurship, there's no final failure. You can always get up and adjust and go again.
It is a very different model. So at school, there's the sort of model of like, okay, you want to become a dentist, you need to get these A levels, then you go to university and you study for 4 years, and then you're a dentist. And it's very linear, but there's very few jobs like that. Other, dentist, nurse, there's a few jobs like that, but very few. And these days, increasingly, it seems like the sort of particularly in the sort of current climate of chaos and adaptation, that you do need to try different things, and it's iterative. And the conference came out of a live conference that never happened, and then we did some purpose workshops, and that turned into an online course, and then that got repurposed 3 years later. And it's all things that I enjoy, but there's a sort of listening to the market, listening to my own embodied self and my own calling. And as you say, it's not just passion as well. Like, people say I'm passionate about this, and what they mean is I enjoy it a lot.
Yes.
But I enjoy eating chocolate a lot. No one's going to pay me for that, right? So it has to have the service piece in there too. I think it's easy to mistake enjoyment for sort of the deep cooling of service. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote about this in a second book I did. And it's the distinguishing thing is value. So that's got a sort of 5-layer model, that book. And there's the things you enjoy doing, which is cool. And then there's the second layer, which is for things you're good at. And then you have to use the things you enjoy doing and the things you're good at to create value for people. Like, as you say, I like watching The Simpsons or Rick and Morty, but it doesn't create value for other people. So no one's going to pay me for it. Yeah. Now, if I write the world's greatest Rick and Morty blog, or create a t-shirt range, or whatever it might be, or use the sort of sense of humor that's in Rick and Morty, the animated series, as part of my brand, it inspires me to be more shocking or whatever, then I can maybe create value for people.
Yeah.
So that's the key thing.
Value creation rather than just simply I enjoy it.
The link between value creation and getting and reward is kind of hidden in a job. Like, if you do a really good job today in the office, you don't automatically get paid more for that day's work. So that the link between value creation and money is kind of somewhat disconnected in jobs, which is why we don't understand it, and it's not taught at school either.
It is amazing what isn't taught at school. So many of the podcasts we have on is someone basically who's found a job teaching something that wasn't taught at school, right? Because I have educators of various kinds. I mean, the same thing with niching as well, with courses, right? Like, is there a problem that's being solved, right? Like, we were doing this ethical marketing course. It's like, okay, people want to do marketing in an ethical way. It's very clear what it does, who it's for, right? It's like, rather than just like well-being course or like I see a lot of stuff from coaches that's like transform your life, and I'm like, well, from what to where, for who am I kind of go, why would I want to transform my life? Who are you? Who am I? What? It doesn't really make sense. It's not sort of specific enough.
Yeah, no, that stuff really is terrible. And I take people through a multi-step process where it starts with a problem that people recognize that they have a problem they need to do something about. If they don't recognize they have a problem, it's really, really difficult to sell to them. You'd have to spend money educating them to the point where they go, oh boy, I ought to do something about it. Now, it's hard enough to get people to buy something when they already know that they want it. Getting people to buy something when they didn't even know they wanted it is much harder. So certainly if you're a beginning entrepreneur, I wouldn't recommend doing that. You want to find where people have a problem and address that directly. And you want a problem. A problem is a situation people are in that they have a negative feeling about. I get really specific about this. So a problem is not, I want to lose weight. That's a kind of vague wish. Yes, that is broadly speaking something people want to do, and you can sell them. But the more specific you can be about what their life is like before this problem is solved, the more powerful your marketing will become, the better your copy will become, the better your social media posts will become. So if you can say, this person wants to lose weight, for instance, but diets don't work for them and they can't do that restriction thing, then, and you have a solution that addresses that, which is, healthy eating for life or whatever it might be, then you can describe what it's like to have tried dieting again and again, for it to have failed, to feel, dissatisfied with your weight, to be concerned about your long-term health, to look in the mirror and say, like, I don't really like where I've got to with my body. And if you can describe those things, it's really magnetic. So the better you can describe their life as it is right now, the more magnetic your marketing is going to be. Whereas coaches, particularly, those relentlessly positive people. Fortunately, I'm not burdened by that. I'm a miserable Brummie, so I find this very easy.
A Brummie, someone from Birmingham, by the way, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So describing their problem, how their life sucks, and then describing what life might be like differently.
Exactly. So there's a kind of there's a before and an after you need to get clear about, and the after needs to be still fairly specific, like everything's going to be wonderful and the birds will sing just for you and you'll be in love and be a stone lighter and be 10 points higher in IQ. It's got to be something specific, like by the time you finish, you'll have this, this, and this. You'll have a bunch of tools. You'll feel like this. You'll know this, that kind of stuff.